Free advice, would you like some free advice? Free advice forever.
Welcome to this week's episode of Free
Advice.
This is Rob Zaleski.
And Morgan Beard.
Hey. What is up this week?
They're not going to respond. Are you talking to me or our listeners?
Yeah, always talking to you.
Oh, okay. For a second, you were talking to the listeners, though, right? Because you don't need to tell me this is free advice. I know why I'm here.
That's a good point.
Do I look like a confused amnesia patient?
Should I answer that?
Do I look like Matt Damon in the Bourne series?
I've never seen a single one.
Let me explain the premise. He wakes up and doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
A few minutes.
No, that's enough. He has this wallet and he's like, oh, this is a picture of me, but I don't know this name. Who is this person?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, you look like Rob Zaleski. You look like the co-host of Free Advice. You look like you know what you're doing.
I've gotten Zac Efron before.
In the context of this podcast?
No, just people. One of the lunch ladies at Duke told me that.
Really?
I suppose it's not just lunch, but you know, what do you call those people? Cafeteria servants? Servants probably isn't good. Yeah.
I was about to say servants is a little Slavic, but it's not.
You mean slave-like?
Slave-like.
No. The supper slaves?
The breakfast biddies.
Food fuckos.
I would say cafeteria workers.
Cafeteria workers.
Because lunch ladies, again, that's a gendered expression.
Yeah. Well, it was a woman, so.
What would you, it's like lunch ladies and lunch lads.
Yeah. Lunch laddies. You
Just
could be
one more D. That's
a
it.
proper woman or an Irish man. That's your options if you serve food in the middle of the day.
What if you serve food at night? So, that's it.
Then we have to come up with a whole new thing, and it's not going to top what we just did. So I'm not going to finish the story because that was more fun than what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I mean, I think you know when you got to abandon it and move on to the next thing. You always got to be hopping on to the best train, the fastest train.
Let me make a point about something deep and philosophical that uses this joke. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey.
Fantastic.
And for us, that journey was coming up with those alternate names for lunch lady. Not about hearing about the time someone said that I look like Zac Efron. Right. It's not really that interesting.
It became the new destination.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a plane. I don't know if you guys
Speaking of destinations, somebody headed to LAX for right now.
And possibly away from LAX. Who knows?
Yeah.
Where do you think they're going?
Sounded like it was headed west to me. Well, just judging.
Do you even know which way is
the
west?
Sun. Yeah, I'm seeing the sun reflected onto that. So,
oh my God.
Sun's setting over there.
Wow,
west.
Rob, if you want to be lost in the woods, you want to be lost in the woods with Rob because he
during the
knows where
daytime.
sun
Sure.
is.
Well, if it's night and the stars are out, I can point you to the North Star. Here's a little free advice. Yeah, find the Big Dipper and then imagine that you're flapping a flapjack out of the front of the pan. Those two stars that make the front of the pan face, what it would flip off of, those point to the North Star.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
If you can only see one dipper, how do you know if it's the bigger?
You're not going to find the Little Dipper. The Little Dipper's tiny.
What?
Little Dipper's a little guy.
Really?
Big Dipper's big. Well, here's something interesting I found out. Two major world cultures both independently decided that was a bear. The Native Americans and the who the fuck did the original constellations, the Greeks or the Romans.
Wow.
I learned this as a kid. And I was like, oh, then that really, if they independently decided that was a bear, then that's a bear. Like, if somebody just says, oh, that one up there's a scorpion or whatever, then that's not. That's just something that they thought. But if different societies that never had contact with each other both said that something's a bear, it's a bear.
Do you think that's sort of like a collective unconscious thing?
Yeah. And the prevalence of bears across multiple continents, you know, like if they're...
And just like everybody likes bears.
It's not like all civilizations are going to find a kangaroo in the sky.
Yeah, no,
you know?
That's totally accurate.
So both are necessary, but...
And existed in both geological regions.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, fucking fantastic. Where do we go from here? What's the next destination?
Do you know any Native American myths?
No, I know the story though about it's like a father or grandfather or something, some like, male figure in the family talking to the son, and tells a story about how each of us, our internal landscape is like two wolves, and they're both hungry, and you can only feed one of them. And no, this is totally wrong.
I'm along for the ride.
I blew it though. I really blew it.
Did you? There was a big reveal that you've already.
Yes.
Okay, tell me about it.
Anyway, the point is, which wolf wins? They're fighting or something. Which one wins? The boy asks, and the father or grandfather says, whichever one you feed. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is that whatever thoughts or behaviors you strengthen by giving attention to them, that will become more of a presence in your life, or whatever hobby you cultivate, or whatever it is. The way that the prophecy unfolds is determined by you. It's not, it's always the good wolf. It's always the bad wolf. It's whichever one you feed, whichever one you give your attention, your time.
That's great.
I know. I love it. And I'm so fucking mad at myself for spoiling the feeding part right in the middle.
You want to stew about it?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
Let's move on.
So the word stew, I want to stew about the word stew, though.
Do it.
There was this nasty fucking mixture that my grandmother would make for everybody, and it was just basically like brown mush, and it was stew. And it was just like a bunch of vegetables like blended together, and she would make these giant batches and then like pour them into separate Ziploc bags to distribute amongst all of her children to feed the family. Yeah. Oh God, no. And so she would just hand us all these like solid Ziploc baggies of just like brown fluid that's just indistinguishable. Like there are no parts left. It's all blended all the way through.
I understand what you're implying that it looks like.
Yes, it looked like shit.
I want to remind you that a lot of our listeners are having dinner right now with their families. They just sat down.
It looked like doo-doo. Sink it in.
Listen, a lot of the homemakers, of whether they're male or female, who are listening to this podcast right now with their
whichever
5 or
one
6
you feed.
children,
yeah,
they spent since 3 p.m. they've been working on that tuna casserole that they just fed to the family. Okay, and you're gonna sit here and talk about what did you say?
Stew.
Yeah, but poo stew.
Poo stew.
Come on.
Poo stew on you. Just a dissatisfied I almost said grundle instead of grumble.
Grundle. Talking about a dissatisfied grundle.
Yeah.
You ever wearing football pants? Tell you what.
Boy, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you what. We used to have a bus driver. Rest in peace. But no,
he's dead, or you used to have a bus driver? Like the bus driver no longer exists at all, or just in your internal world of the story?
He's dead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Yes. His name was Rose Papa. He was beloved. And he used to say, "Boy, I'll tell you what," at the end of his, whenever he was saying.
That was it.
He would say like, "That Dale Earnhardt, boy, I'll tell you what," and then he wouldn't tell you what.
Yeah.
But
the future tense leads you to believe he's gonna say something else.
Yeah, he promised to tell you what. But
it seems rude of him.
That Dale Earnhardt.
Do you think his gravestone just says, "Boy, I'll tell you what," and that's it? I'll never tell.
I think it just says what.
Yeah, what? Period. I'm done.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Riveting.
Yeah.
What do you think? Should we take some advice? We done bantering?
I do have a topic about gross foods.
I would love to hear it.
I mean, I know I'm the one. This is a little hypocritical because of what I just said about their eating dinner. I read a Reddit argument. There's a subreddit called "Am I the Asshole?"
Yeah.
People post something they did and they ask like for judgment from other people.
Yeah.
There's this guy in college, okay? And he does meal prep. So he makes like a week's worth of food, seals it up into Tupperware. And his one housemate keeps eating it and denying that they're eating it. So
what? Jesus.
I know. So he jizzes in some of the food.
I also have a story now.
Okay. This got into a whole, the comments got deleted. And then the next day there was another discussion thread about like people's reactions to it, whether this was sexual assault or not, whether this is legal. I think it's so complicated. And so they're marking the food for them. Essentially, okay, so some people say it's entrapment. That if you suspect that somebody's doing something like that, then you're like, it would be wrong if he was poisoning it.
Sure.
But this isn't technically poison. And so I looked up, can you get like an STD? Is there any hazard from this?
Yeah.
And you also kind of then have to say, if you can't do this, you can't then just jizz in your own food.
Right. No, that's the thing. It's like you're allowed to do whatever you want. It's your own food.
Yeah, if you want to spit in your own food, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Like I could imagine in LA especially, like there being like a health trend of like, you know how you can give yourself extra vitality throughout the day, jizz in your own food.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think it's totally fine, especially if you've already asked the guy, you're not eating my food.
It's also
you're not eating my food.
Female
okay,
housemate.
fine. I don't care what gender.
Okay, some people.
If they're
I mean, that makes
lying
it a
and
little bit
denying it.
more emotionally like, ugh.
No, I don't care.
You don't think so?
No, I don't care at
For
all.
me, that makes it like just an ickier situation.
I mean, of course it's icky, but like, to me, if the person had not given them a chance to own up to it, it would have been different. That's to me where the difference is.
Oh, if you just started doing it because you suspected them, and and if it was a miscommunication, she said they were clearly marked, like it said, "Please do not eat." It had labels with their name on it, and
she.
No, the man who was making the food, and that they found the Tupperware like in the backseat of their housemate's car once and left in their room. So they were like, it's clearly this person. And every time I've confronted them about it, they deny it and say that I'm crazy for
fuck them, in my opinion. You know what? The other thing is,
Could you go too far with the fuck them philosophy though? Like, is there something you could do? Yes, of course. What is that line for you?
Shitting in the food.
Okay, because that could hurt them more. Okay.
Yeah, that could make them sick.
Yeah.
But like, guys, like we swallow cum all the time. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Everybody, it's just us here.
But yeah, it's their food. They can do whatever they want with it. And as someone who really struggles to prepare food for myself, like that would be a trauma. Like it would be so much effort for me. It's so much effort for me to make food. And to be doing it repeatedly and be thoughtfully meal prepping. And then some fuckhead is just going in there, doing it, denying it, getting off scot-free, not anymore.
So then the other part of the discussion is, do you reveal it to the roommate, the housemate that then eats the food? And if so, how? I think the best suggestion was to tell the housemate as if you suspected somebody else was eating it and be like, hey, check this out.
Look what I did.
Look what I did to Gary. And then like try and get them to laugh with you about it.
Yeah.
But I think that having already confronted them about it means that they would know that you suspected them.
I would
Yeah.
do what I just told you, which is talk to them about the health benefits of doing it and how you've been jizzing in your food. And it's been great. But okay,
now
so
you're noticing all kinds of benefits now.
Yeah. And just make up a bunch of symptoms that are now cleared up. It healed my dandruff. Okay. So the story that I have is, and this one I think is more morally dubious.
Good.
In my co-ed fraternity in college, Maxwell House.
Good. I'm glad you named it. I was going to.
Oh yeah, you were. I loved being in Maxwell
thought
House.
of it. Okay.
Oh, it was great. Anyway,
named after the coffee, right?
Yeah. I mean, actually, I don't know if we were. We may have had some other origin story, but now we were aware of the,
Sure.
double meaning.
Yeah.
But or maybe single meaning. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. Our motto was Bibo ergo sum. I drink, therefore I am, which, is funny and problematic, all wrapped into one. But it's Latin, so it's cute. We had this kid in our class.
Okay.
What's up?
Like imbibe. I'm learning the Latin.
Oh, yeah. We had this kid in our class who was like notorious for kind of like maybe mooching food, but also just kind of eating whatever was around in the like the common room where everyone hung out. And so this was a pattern that was picked up on by everyone, and probably there was some frustration or a sense of wanting him to like have maybe a moment of confronting this behavior. But instead, they decided that one of our other friends was going to take like the last slice of pizza in the box and lift up the cheese and jizz underneath the cheese and then put the cheese back and then leave the slice out. Of course, our friend comes in, eats it. I don't remember when they told him. It was later, I think. But that always seemed a little too far to me. I mean, hilarious college story, great, haha. But, that person also was not expecting to eat jizz and really wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong.
That doesn't sound as bad, unless it was like marked and sealed. Just a
No. It was just like, haha, fuck you.
Out.
It was just like a haha, fuck you.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a necessary revenge for
somebody's... And it wasn't really revenge. It was...
Yeah, just a prank.
It's kind of just a prank.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was too far.
It's worse. Yeah.
Do you think it's
definitely worse?
Okay, here's a situation. Say you wanted to tone it down a little bit. Is it worse to jizz in their food and not tell them, or not jizz in their food and tell them?
Oh.
Thank you.
Fascinating.
Thank you for that vocal reaction. Clearly, that's approval for my dilemma that I've just presented with.
The question is, would I rather receive, like, which end of this am I on deciding?
Or I guess which is worse for the victim? I think it's being told, and being told is worse than doing it and not knowing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because
you don't have to have that repulsion experience later. Like, it would be like brushing your teeth and then finding out your toothbrush was someone knocked it into the toilet and put it back in the thing.
Yeah, it's probably.
So I would never want to know at that point if I've already used it.
Right.
Because then it just gives me like a for no reason. Because it's already happened to me.
And the sickness might just be like because of the suggestion. Yeah, you could make somebody sick just by telling them that happened and it didn't even really happen.
Yes. Yeah, it's like thinking about, oh my God, we swallow whatever number of spiders a year while we sleep. It's like, that just makes it harder for you to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's 8 per hour. I've looked it up.
8 per hour?
8 per hour, yeah. It's a full night's sleep. You get about 64 spiders.
What?
Will, yeah.
No.
For
it
many,
was like 8 a year.
No, you know how a lot of like jihadists think that the most honorable way to die is by like taking down the infidels. Well, for spiders, getting into Valhalla is like if you can die honorably by getting swallowed by a sleeping person.
How many virgin spiders are in my stomach already?
72
times 8. No more math on this podcast.
Yeah. If only we were better mental mathsters, we could have really done that.
I'm okay with the level of mathster I'm at, which is pretty much calculating the tip.
576.
Just the tip. So should we take some advice?
Oh, yeah, let's do some advice.
We just stared at each other for like 30 seconds.
Well,
we'll probably cut it out.
We both gave our punchlines at the same time. I was trying to impress people that I did the mental math, and you were trying to make a
And I was just saying just
fun.
the tip.
Yeah.
I just, And so, hey, good timing. BJ Black Belt, spelled BJBLK, so I'm assuming BJ Black Belt. You know, it's like when you're trying to decipher somene's vanity tag, and you're like, what are they thinking it means when it's like, merp first, night? You're like, which vowels are they missing?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's not Belk Belt.
BJJ is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so it could be that they're referencing that.
Okay, well, it's BJBLKBELT, all caps. BJ Black Belt is what I'm calling them. Asks, should I date my weed dealer? I've had a really tough time with dating. I had a really bad breakup about 7 months ago, which resulted in not only the breakup, my ex moved into the room I had just gotten evicted from because I had just gotten fired from my job and couldn't afford rent. Long story short, I have not wanted to date anyone, ... But recently, I've been feeling some type of way about my weed dealer. His English isn't that great, but I can tell he's got jokes. He's a little shy. He's not my usual type. Super big muscles. Wait, I can't tell if they're saying my usual type is super big muscles or he's not my usual type because he has super big muscles. But anyway, we had a...
I can answer that. Finish the question.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
He's not my usual type, comma, super big muscles, comma. So that's her usual type, I assume. We had a sesh and made out a bit on the weekend. He's clean cut, super cute, super polite. total Asian muscle babe. Oh, yeah. Okay. So super big
That's
muscle.
what I was going to tell you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. He's so hot. And he also has some really good shit. I want to kiss him and do sex stuff.
Okay.
Don't we all? But I also don't want to have to find a new guy. I live in a nanny state, so it's really difficult to find good stuff. If we don't work out, I don't want to have to find a new dealer. What do I do? Help!
Yeah, okay. So the general dilemma here is you have some type of a business relationship or some other functional purpose that is served by this person in your life.
Right.
And then you're considering making things sexual or romantic, and you worry that you're going to have to sacrifice that other positive quality of the relationship.
They did make out a little already.
They already made out. Okay.
But they're asking, should I date them?
For me, this plays into a conversation about having one-size-fits-all dating. Like if you just have a program that you run where it's like, all right, here's a person and I'm going to slide them into the dating box and then here are my expectations for that. Exactly.
Engage.
Yeah, exactly. Let's like put that disc into the floppy drive.
Folder.
Yeah.
The slot.
We're so good at computers, Morgan. We're gonna
And sex.
do a spin-off computer podcast called
Sex
Sexpot.
stuff and tech stuff.
Yeah.
What was your joke? I'm sorry.
Sexpot. It was very simple. Okay, I would recommend having a one-size-fits-all dating category. Like, if you're interested in this guy,
Yeah.
then figure out what type of way of relating works for the two of you.
Yeah.
Maybe that will be activities that you've never done with anybody else before. Maybe it'll be types of conversation topics or means of communicating, frequency of hanging out that is novel to you, but that happens to work for what you want and what this guy wants. And
So break out of your normal repertoire. Is that what you're saying?
if you are not confined by the normal, by your standard, then you can have a suitable relationship with this person.
Right. Right.
Given the circumstances that you explained about how they sell you weed, and maybe that means that you want a little more distance, but you want to be able to make out and do sex stuff on the couch with them from time to time.
Yeah.
If you want to do it more frequently, then maybe you have another conversation about like, hey, here are my other requests in order for us to be able to do this more frequently and for me to be comfortable with it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that like kind of the gist of what Rob is saying, as with any relationship that you embark on, it's smart to have a conversation before things get too entangled about everyone's expectations and setting boundaries for what do we want to be part of this relationship and what do we want to keep out of the relationship for now, given that we're trying to do this slightly more complicated than standard type of relationship where we have two roles in each other's lives. And I think this is, although it's primarily kind of borrowed from people that are trying to do more complicated types of relationship dynamics, like open relationships, polyamorous, all that stuff, I think that it's smart for anyone to do because, as I've found out in relationships, not everyone has the same idea of what is even just dating monogamously.
sure.
So I think that's good advice for anyone is to be thoughtful about what do you want this relationship to look like.
And what do you
then
not
having-
want it to look like is often an easy
Right.
starting point for a lot of
Totally.
people because they have more familiarity with that. Like you were talking about, this is our question asker, that bad relationship where your ex ended up living in your room. And, figure out what were the traits about them or the ways that you two interacted that you don't want and ask for a relationship that doesn't have those things.
Yeah, totally. I had something else in
It's
there.
cool. It was an awesome point. I can imagine you being breathtaking.
I was about to say something so good and it was going to really validate everything.
I'll get my breath ready.
My whole ego. No, I'm just kidding. I'll get my breath ready. Yeah. Take some extra
You can
breaths.
take it.
But yeah, I mean, I think that kind of boundary setting is, and definition creating is really important. I just don't have more to say about it than that, I guess. But there are some other, other elements to it. Like, I wonder if, did you have any kind of boundary setting conversations with the ex who you guys had a bad breakup and, having some of those living situation challenges. I wonder if some of what made that relationship more difficult, I remember now what I was going to say, I'll fold it in, was, perhaps not upholding a boundary or several that maybe that you wish that you had. And maybe you didn't, because you had sort of made this implicit agreement with this person. Maybe it felt weird to kind of put a boundary in place once there was already this particular type of dynamic. Like, I think what I'm alluding to is it's easier to try to set boundaries in the beginning and then stick to them rather than not talk about it, giving this false impression that anything goes, and the person maybe expects like, well, I can just move in with you, right? And then having to feel like, oh, how do I regain that ground, since that's this person's expectation of what a relationship is, and maybe this is my expectation. But the other thing I think to having, I hate to use the word successful, but a relationship that's perhaps more satisfying is being able to recognize when old boundaries don't serve you anymore and flexibly approaching rediscussing certain things as the relationship progresses and new elements emerge. Like, I can imagine, if you ended up dating your weed dealer at the beginning, you might want to have sort of stricter, harsher boundaries, like Rob said, in order to preserve the exchange of goods, say. But if you guys got closer and more intimate, some of those might feel a little too clunky or overbearing. You might need to rediscuss, like, okay, now I think we can see each other on Saturdays, or, call each other to say goodnight, something like that. It's just random examples.
I want to caution, if you feel you're dependent or addicted to weed, that there may be a power imbalance.
That's important.
If this is your only source of that. And then I would advise against it. I would advise against dating this person, because you may make concessions in the relationship that you would otherwise not be okay with, because this person is your only means of accessing the thing that is your whatever your security blanket, or whatever it serves for you. If it feels like something that you need, then it's probably a bad idea to date this person, because they hold that power, and then you're not going to have a very equal relationship, or one that, you have like fewer bargaining chips, essentially.
Sure. I thought you were going a different direction with that, which is, if you feel that you have an addiction to the substance, that you maybe wouldn't want to build it into your life more by dating that person. I would. So that's great advice for that.
Sure.
Half.
Yeah, with any substance like this, there's a potential for abuse, and they're not asking for advice on that. But if you think you have a problem, then seek resources for help with that. Yeah, I suppose that sounds obvious to me, but to a lot of people, it's not.
But I think that like when we go into these topics, I think it's important to say as much as we can think to say, to do a comprehensive kind of guide. Because the other thing is, like, we're also talking to people that aren't just this person. We're also talking to other people that are pot smokers and drug users of all kinds. And
and make-out sesh havers and sex stuff doers.
Asian muscle men.
It's our biggest demographic. You check the stats.
But we knocked everybody off who was under 4'11" last time, so we're narrowing, actually. But anyway.
Are you saying Asian people are short? Is that what you're
No, I was just talking demos in general, because I made that comment about how I said I probably wouldn't date anyone who was under 4'11", and you were like, there goes all of our listenership.
Good callback.
Thank you.
Only seems
I'm really
racist
glad
to a casual listener.
Only seems racist to a casual.
The diehards will know that you're pure of heart.
The diehards will actually know that I've made many racist jokes. Everyone will be very
upset. It's your forte. It's your signature move.
Oh God, I don't want that to be my signature. I have a problem, is basically what I'm saying. I'm coming clean. Anyway, what I wanted to say about any kind of addiction, since we're on the topic, especially with something so weed in general. We live in California, so weed is legal in our state now. So we're not in the same. What?
Not a nanny state, according to their terminology. State.
Right. So
I haven't heard that before. Is that like a U.S. state where I assume that they're just harsh laws on it, or it could be that they're talking about Britain?
honey, don't use that.
Sounds like a British thing. This person could be British.
It's possible. I don't think we're going to give them different, worse advice because of it.
Yeah.
Like we're going to give it, we're still bringing our A game.
You're right.
Anyway, so with something like weed where now it's legal and so access to it in some places has sort of like blown up. Because, I'm imagining we're not just talking to this nanny state person. We're also talking to our California brethren.
Sure.
It brings the term addiction to a different lens. And I think, I've been in this space and I know other of my peers have been as well, is like, okay, now that this thing is permissible by law, how do I police it in myself? And how do I take personal responsibility for like, what is too much of it for me?
Sure.
And how do I define my standard of like, what is the right amount of usage? And so I just want to say like, that's another conversation where it can be helpful to set a boundary ahead of time with yourself and do sort of an honest assessment of, either what kinds of contexts feel like times if you were thinking about, okay, being my best self, maybe I don't want to use weed when I'm alone, or maybe I don't want to use weed with people. It all depends on how it affects you personally. Or do I not want to use weed a certain number of times a week or a certain number of times a day or a month? Playing with what feels like the right amount of usage. A little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to put that in there.
Sure. I'll second that. And I think that the context is more important than the times per week. Like your relationship to it, what problems it solves for you is more important than the amount in terms of grams or frequency or whatever you're going to measure that by.
Yeah. So sometimes you can choose a substance for what it helps you lean into more of, or sometimes you choose a substance for, like what does it help you avoid or do less of? I mean, that's just one possible lens through which to view it. And so I think that perhaps before you indulge in a substance where you may be doing either one of those things to a quote unquote harmful extent, just ask yourself, like for me, sometimes I do it to kind of turn off a certain type of like self-critical voice, like something left-brained that's kind of nipping at me, and I get tired of hearing that voice, with a certain amount of frequency. And so I know that if I smoke some weed, it will calm that down and I'll be able to have a different type of experience. I do a new thing where when I notice having a desire to smoke weed, I'll sort of do a little bit of an inventory with myself of like, okay, is there something that I'm avoiding? Am I exhausted by this certain voice in my head? Just getting some clarity on what's my motivation and then kind of working with that. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, if I know that I'm doing it to achieve this, let me try one other thing let me try like putting one thing in between me and doing this activity and just seeing how I feel after that. And if I still, after meditating or journaling, for example, once I've, faced my emotions head on and then I go into the activity, I still permit myself to do it, of course.
You're reassuring yourself it's not a form of avoidance of confronting something that you think could be important for you to understand or fully deal with. Yeah.
I just ask myself, what would it be like if I stretched into my ability to do this thing a little bit and then I indulge in this substance? It's, it's sort of like, okay, eat your veggies and then you can have dessert kind of thing. Little self-parenting techniques that I find helpful. But anyway, back to the specific question.
This person, doesn't seem like they think that they have a problem with that. Their question is about whether to date their dealer.
Yeah. So I think what you were saying is like this BJ Black Belt needs to decide how important is preserving this particular source of getting weed.
Yeah.
And adding on from there, okay, what are the risks I'm willing to take? What are the risks I'm willing to take? Or what's the percentage of risk that I'm willing to take in terms of, because any relationship you embark on, of course, is a risk. Once feelings are involved in that way, it's much easier to slip into territory that can have adverse, impacts on the relationship. And so it's like, okay, what boundaries will help sort of minimize the risk, maximize the reward of occupying these two roles in a relationship, which could, of course, go great.
Do you have any suggestions for specific ones?
Specific boundaries that I think would
for
be good.
this.
I would think about what are the behaviors that kind of surround you purchasing from this person? Like what days?
Are you okay with them making a profit off of you if you're intimately involved? Or do you need to get a wholesale price all of a sudden?
Right. Yeah. Well, then that's a question to ask them about what are their boundaries too. Because I mean, probably the weed dealer isn't going to want to feel like they're
losing business.
But maybe, I mean.
Maybe it's a worthwhile.
Who knows?
Sometimes if you start dating a customer, it's just a loss you take.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's a really smart idea to have that conversation about, is anyone being exploited here, and how do we kind of try to avoid that territory?
Another specific roadblock in this is that their English isn't great. It seems like that they probably got jokes, but their English isn't on the same level. So some of this communication could be tough.
Yeah.
It might be a motivating factor to keep this relationship more shallow, more surface level. You know, you can laugh together, you can come together, but maybe you don't cry together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of the big three that relationships are meant to be able to help you handle. You maybe only get 2 out of the 3 with this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Clean cut cereal plate. I want to kiss him and do sex stuff, but I don't want to have to find a new guy. Okay, so maybe it is something that's more physical and sexual than it is emotional. Because that has the potential to cut off some of the potentially, more dangerous for the relationship kind of things. But of course, once you get physical intimacy involved and you got that oxytocin, you got that dopamine, feelings can easily get involved for one or both parties. And then especially if it's like neither of us are supposed to catch feelings and one person does, then it can create a lot of distance, because it's this like, oh shit, I can't tell them this is happening. And then it creates this wedge that can really easily kind of infect the dynamic in both roles. So basically we agree it's dodgy territory and you have to decide what are your priorities.
Yeah.
You may want to start looking for a backup drug dealer.
Yeah. I was going to suggest just buying a ton and stockpiling it at the beginning and then going all in on the relationship.
Smart.
But I realize this person probably doesn't have a lot of surplus income to invest in inventory right now. Right?
I mean,
given that they
know.
were just evicted in their last boyfriend.
Okay.
It sounded like they lost their job. So I'm not going to recommend you blow a bunch of money on weed.
And then go all in on a new relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is funny because it's like the fact that this person is bringing up their past relationship and that it was 7 months ago, I really can't tell if they're saying it hasn't been that long or it has been that long. But the fact that they're bringing that person into the conversation at all gives me a sense
been that long.
That there's a tinge of
there's
stuckness.
still dealing with some of
Still
the
dealing with it.
fallout from that.
So I would actually more or equally consider evaluating whether you're ready to date again in general, aside from the drug dealer element.
And it's not a binary what elements of dating, like we said at the beginning. Like, what do you want to do with this person? What do you not?
Yeah.
Start slow is probably the best recommendation for this.
Yeah.
Is this person otherwise safe and reliable, or is their illegal career choice indicative of other potential dangers that you might not see coming?
I'm glad you brought up the language barrier, because that is, while it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it does have implications as far as like knowing how much your communication is received and if the exchange is really like one-to-one. Of course, even when you speak the same language as someone, and especially when you get into territory where emotions are involved, there can be a lot of missed messages.
Sure.
Yeah. So tread carefully is the number one advice I think are saying. Like step one, tread carefully. Evaluate your priorities in both regards. Like what do you want out of the relationship? How much do you care about protecting your connection to the drug availability as a safeguard? You could implement some safeguards like getting a portion of weed ahead of time, or, you know, you can even ask him maybe if he knows another drug dealer, just in case. Because
I will date you if you introduce me to your competition.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe some of the boundaries you think about are, you know, how many times do you see them for this purpose? How many times do you see them for that purpose? And what is the expectation as far as that? Because I could see that getting kind of complicated as well. And if that person, if you're on their route, is there an expectation that they're always going to stay, hang out with you for a long time? Or is he in business mode?
Yeah.
You know, being clear about what is that investment on both sides. But so I think that this is a fair time to bring in a little bit of our expertise as far as our relationship and navigating the different roles that no, you don't want to do that.
Never work for them.
It'll never work for them.
We're superhumans.
We have a podcast.
Yeah.
You can't just have one of those. You totally can. Obviously. So why don't you, I'm inviting
I do
you to
think
tell us
that
about our process.
it's just using us as a model is probably not a great, for their type of relationship, one of them not speaking the same language as well and being like a drug dealer, drug client. My expectation is that it's just not that applicable. But
Okay.
you were trying to say that we communicated well about and were able to like not ruin a friendship despite.
I was going to say,
me
what
expressing
are some
interest in you.
tips based on our trajectory moving through different roles that might help these guys find more success? I'm not saying they sit back to back and write about their fears for 3 hours. Spoiler alert. We didn't do that. We totally did that.
What's the spoiler? We did do that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
that.
my memory is
It
correct.
was a joke.
Okay.
It was not a good joke.
Good one.
Don't say it again.
Well,
Don't.
great one. Knocked it out of the park. Babe Ruth, that shit. Pointed to the.
It was a Stee-Reich.
Huh?
It was a Stee-Reich.
Oh, strike. Okay. What did you ask me to do? Sorry. I kind of.
Based on your experience.
Oh yeah, what's good for them? Well,
What are
if
some
they
tips?
if they can talk about what their wants are and their fears are. So for this listener, for the BJ Black Belt, maybe you want someone to hook up with, but you fear losing your source of weed. And if you can tell this person both of those things and let them decide.
I think one of the things that we talked about was how would you like to be rejected if that time comes?
Yeah.
So I think that's a conversation that could be helpful.
Sure.
Of like,
Great first date topic. How do you want me to end this? No, really though. If you can have that conversation with somebody and it goes well, then hey, you guys are both.
Yeah.
You're set.
Like, I think prepare for good things, prepare for not as good things. Get a sense of how this person would want you to communicate if there is a bump in the road or an obstacle. Not necessarily something relationship ending, but, you know, built-in checkpoints for when we talk about how our relationship is going, you know, things like that.
I just get the feeling that they're probably not going to do this stuff.
You're giving up on them already?
No, I just am anticipating that it's probably like a get high and watch cartoons and make out.
I mean, they're
And maybe
bothering to
have
post on Reddit
You're
about
right.
it.
You're right there.
They're seeking
Okay.
advice. We
You're
didn't
right.
beat this question out of anybody.
No, but you know who could beat this question out of somebody? Probably this poster because they're a BJ Black Belt. All right, moving on. Next question.
Is it a blowjob black belt? Is it
doubt
a
it.
blackjack black belt? Is
I
it a
think it's-
Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
I
But
think
it
it's-
would be BJJ.
It would just be Brazilian Jew in this case. All right.
Okay, you are done with this question. Why are you
do you
so...
have more that you want to
No,
say?
I just...
mean,
no,
we've been
not
talking about this.
necessarily, but I feel like
We're at what is this? An hour and 40 minutes that we've been talking about this question now. So let's just.
I feel like right from the start of me trying to pull our relationship in, you were like,
I'm
giving me,
resisting
like, a
it.
big X. And
Well,
so now I feel like you're.
It's honestly
being
because
dead.
I think that we've been on this for a while, and I
Yeah.
am putting myself in their shoes, and I think that it's like a simpler question than maybe they'll like that, but I imagine this person doesn't speak great English, and it's not an option to do like a deep dive into emotional backstory.
But let's be honest, this is our podcast.
Yeah. We can talk about whatever
who
we
gives
want.
a shit? Like, this is just a jumping off point. So do we not strive to always do the most comprehensive analysis we can of each question?
I think that you hit an optimization point of entertainment and being thorough, and sometimes we'll disagree about where that point is.
Yeah.
And this may be one of those times.
Yeah.
I farted so that it would be like a state change.
Right now?
I did it like 20 seconds ago, and I was like, all right, moving on.
And you decided that's where we're letting go of this gas.
Yeah, I was like, she's going to smell this, and subconsciously she's going to be like, all right, let's move on. This topic is starting to stink to me.
You were hoping I'd make like a subtle olfactory association.
People do. Oh, that's a great
funny.
way to trick. Okay, some free advice that I'm going to
Some
wedge
more
in here.
free-
Yeah.
Sure.
If you need to switch states, what's this called? Aroma conditioning, where you're like going from work to play or vice versa, is like switch the essential oil that you've got in your diffuser, you know? And then you'll begin to
Change the lighting, something like that.
But
Yeah.
especially smell is the closest linked sense to memory.
Yeah, of
Your
course.
olfactory bulb is right up against the limbic system.
Right.
So
So I'm wondering though, what's the cause and what's the effect? Like, did you fart and then think, I want to escape this, let's move on, sort of
Ooh,
subconsciously?
hard to know.
Or right?
Did I just
Right.
did I fart and then justify it, or did I
Yes.
have the justification
I'm
and then
I'm
produce
guessing
the
it's
gas?
that. I'm guessing
Which,
it's the
the
first
former?
one. I think it's like you farted and then part of you was like, all right, I want to be done with this moment. Let's move on to the next.
But how do I know that subconsciously I didn't produce the gas because I wanted to get rid of this topic, and so my body was like, "Here, I'll help you out.
Here's a
Here
freebie."
comes a toot."
Toot! Topic change.
You're gonna want to back up from your mic just a little bit whenever you make that toot noise in the future. We just got dropped from iTunes.
But listen, I wanted to just give you a little
Jesus, you're rowdy.
fuck you. I've had undercover anger boiling since
Since when?
since you didn't want to answer my question about what tips could we give them from our relationship, and then
Yeah.
it just felt dismissive. That's what it was.
Okay.
I felt a little dismissed.
All right. Well, you
Sorry.
are dismissed.
Okay, so should I
Class
just hand you the
dismissed.
question I was going to do and just walk out of my own apartment?
I'll
No.
read it if you want.
Fuck you.
Okay.
I love you.
I know.
Thanks for that. That's always the response you're hoping for. Anorro, Anorro, asks, need advice about my virginity! Exclamation
I
point.
love you too, by the way.
I know.
Okay. Didn't hurt when you said it to me.
Well,
The
yeah,
I know
because it was like
part.
the second expression. Like, it was not the same exchange. It was
Okay,
a
the
perfect
first time you're
reciprocation
not allowed to
of
say I
what
know,
you
but the
did.
second time you're allowed to say I know.
Well, only because you did it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Okay.
yeah, no, I know.
So Anorro is asking us about losing their virginity?
They are. But I also want to make the point that
What?
even though no one, whenever they say this, is actually over it, but I genuinely am over
You're
it. I'm
over
ready
it?
to just toot it all right out and just dive right into this question.
I don't have any more toots, so this better be the last question. I'm not going to be able to push this along. let me
Maybe
swallow.
I'll fart when I decided I'm done with answering this question.
I'm going to
How's that?
swallow some burps and hope some get lost.
Find your way out, little guys. Head south.
It's a maze down there.
Just keep swimming, Dory would say.
Mm.
So I'm a virgin, and I was on Grindr and found this guy that wants to hook up with me. He wants to fuck me in his car. Is that a bad sign? I'm pretty scrawny, and he looks like a big dude, so if he tries anything, I'm fucked. What should I do? You're fucked regardless. Isn't that the goal? First of all, but
No, but yeah, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
They mean like screwed.
Oh, I get it. Oh, I'm picking up where you're putting down. I'm smelling that fart. Okay, so I have bigger concerns.
Yeah. Okay. when do you recommend a person lose their virginity on Grindr?
When specifically on Grindr,
Yeah. Like with a person that they met on Grindr.
I don't think that the dating app component of it is
Not a problem. Okay.
the part that's problematic for me. My concern is if this person was comfortable losing their virginity in this context with this little, what I would call fanfare or specialness, they wouldn't have posted this question. So I think that
you're not comfortable.
I think Anorro wants their experience to be a little more special is not quite the right word, but
Lose your virginity with somebody who you trust your physical safety with.
Oh, of course. The physical safety part, of course.
That's the main red flag for me. Is like, yeah, you don't need to be in love with the person or know them deeply, but make sure that you feel like if something went wrong, they would have your back and help you recover, or, you know, they're not going to hurt you. That's the important thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'm grabbing more onto the fact that this is their virginity. Because I agree with you that if the question was just, I met someone on Grindr that once took up in their car, I'm small, they're big, they could do anything to me. That's a slightly different question than I'm considering losing my virginity this way.
Yes.
Because there's an emotional attachment, like culturally, potentially religious, a ton of different implications.
Once you've had some practice, virginity. I don't think you have to trust every partner as much as I'm recommending for this, but I think that it's an important, if you can, lose your virginity to somebody that you trust.
Totally. And
you probably can.
Yeah. And it sounds like, or what I was going to say is this is not to say that it's never safe to fuck someone bigger than you in a car. But since you have
while they're driving
specifically from the back seat while they're fucking
plenty
you.
Of Teslas
their foot is on the wheel.
That have very sophisticated autopilot features that are specifically designed for you to butt fuck in. Elon Musk demos it in one of the new ads.
But yeah, it just sounds to me like you have maybe a 1 out of 10 emotional investment, and some type of investment, again, which I'm perceiving just sheerly by the fact that you posted this question, an investment in this experience being something maybe more considered than something like this. Again, I personally don't think that in general losing our virginity has to be this giant fanfare. I think we put way too much pressure on it, and it's often for most people not a particularly memorable or pleasant sexual experience compared to the overall trajectory of their sex careers. But that being said, I think if you're going into it with, like Rob said, doubts about safety, number one, doubts about the person, doubts about the situation.
Sure.
Those are all things that are valid to consider. So you should consider them. Yes.
Oh, go ahead. I don't want to.
I was just going to say, you deserve to lose the virginity in the way that feels best, makes the most sense to you. And only you are going to know what that means.
Yes. And if you're confused about it, I think err on the side of caution. Mm-hmm. Here, I'm interested in what you're saying about virginity not being sacred, how it couples with, I believe, your belief that childhood or early experiences, formative experiences matter in how a person shapes their attitudes and perceptions later in life. I think that virginity can be kind of an arbitrary line, especially for LGBT people, that, like, if it's not penis and vagina sex, there could be other acts that qualify as like that was where it felt like I did everything that I wanted, or we, really went all the way. And so it might not be like your formative sexual experiences might not be the V card, the like proper virginity, but I do think that a person's first sexual experiences shape their expectations and then cause them to seek out familiar ones in the future. So I think it does matter what happens first.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I was sort of speaking more generally to the amount of pressure people put on it internally to be
The
special,
full moon,
magical,
rose petals on the lake, the
Yeah.
crab singing on the gondola. Yeah.
How did you lose your virginity?
I'm not going to tell the story here.
Okay. I was 19. I was a bit of a late bloomer. I was in college and I lost my virginity to my boyfriend at the time. We had been dating for a few months. It was actually both of our virginities. And to me, it was, to both of us, really, we talked about it. It wasn't about saving yourself for the right moment, because it was just like in our dorm room, nothing fancy. But, it was a decision that we made based on our relationship has progressed to this point where we want to give each other this thing that, is a sort of landmark experience. It's a bullet point on the timeline of my sexual history, more so than maybe the 20th person I had sex with. But that was my criteria for it. It just has to be someone who I feel comfortable enough with, someone who I think kind of, I don't know about the word deserves it, because again, that assigns quite a bit of specialness to it that doesn't necessarily need to be there. But, it just kind of felt like the right time and the right person. The context was less important because, like I said, we were dating. It was at a point where we were like, we're ready to fuck. And that was good for us. But, I know people that have lost it in all different types of ways. And it really is mostly about what is your sense of your own internal criteria for when do I want this to have happened in my life? What is this context? If I think about when I look back on this, how am I going to feel about this moment in time? And look, if you are in a moment right now where you're like, I just want to get it over with, I don't really care who it is, I even kind of want it in a way to be acting out, rebellious, a sort of rash decision that's like sexually charged and just like, fuck it, whatever, great. I support anything that feels safe enough to you to do it. And then you can later create and buy into whatever narrative about it you want. Truthfully, it's your own life experience and you get to kind of decide how you feel about it. That being said, you don't want to induce a trauma on yourself.
I agree with everything you said except for whatever feels safe enough to you, because I've just seen examples of people just not being aware of a certain consideration, whether that's like condoms or something like that, and they feel safe, but
wear
like,
a condom.
That's a very risky behavior.
Wear a condom.
Yeah, depending on what you're doing. Look at some objective measure or ask for an outside opinion of whether something is safe enough before just doing it because it feels safe enough to you. If it seems risky, but you're feeling good about it at the moment, you can be blinded by hormones into doing something that's actually damaging to yourself.
Yeah, I guess I don't mean if it feels safe for you in the moment while you're sexually charged. I mean, in considering all of the various set of circumstances.
What are those considerations, do you think?
I mean, it's the person, the type of relationship you have with the person, how much communication you've had with this person. Have you met up before? What is the plan? To what extent is this person willing to discuss the plan with you? Does this person know that you're a virgin? How do they feel about it?
Yeah, do you have an obligation to tell people if you're a virgin?
I would.
What if you don't want to?
Then I would have to say, ask yourself, if you don't feel comfortable enough with someone to tell them that this is your first sexual experience to this extent, then maybe it's not someone you feel comfortable with actually going to that extent with. I think that's kind of a general, again, to me, I feel like honesty and transparency are I feel safe enough kind of consideration. you know, of course, as well as like taking considerations in terms of sexual health, physical health. Obviously, I mean, I've expressed over and over again on this podcast the extent to which honesty is a value of mine and not being deceived is a value of mine. And perhaps I have an overly emotional attachment to honesty. But I am also someone who feels very comfortable and confident in my decisions once I know a person pretty well. And I have very few regrets sexually, based on the extent to which I am capable of being open, honest with whoever I invite into that situation with me. I think I'm a really good judge of character. I get a sense of someone deeply quite quickly, and I'm very infrequently wrong. And in the situations where I do make mistakes, I'm able to understand how they fit into the bigger picture, and I've never taken a mistake where the risk has been detrimentally high.
Yeah. I want to bring up the car detail then.
Yeah, please.
Because that seems to me as a clue that either this person doesn't have a permanent place of residence to their own, or they don't want you to see it because they don't want you to know where they live, or they don't want whoever they live with to see you. Mm-hmm. That's would indicate the kind of to
privacy
me
that to me makes
they're probably not going to get into deep background and personal history.
And they may not want to see you again, and will
Right.
that be okay for you?
Right. This may not be the groundwork for them having these discussions at all. And if that's the case, I also advise that you pass on this person.
Yeah, I think
there will be plenty of big guys willing to have sex with you in their car.
Or in their bed. Or in your bed.
Yeah, and some will go to a bed and... I mean, I've heard that the car is a classic place to lose your virginity. And
That's
plenty
true.
of people do it.
It's true. We don't know this person's age.
Right.
Either.
But having never seen their home and them wanting to specifically meet up in the car might be a way of distancing, allowing them to get away with more or treat you worse.
Yeah. Yeah. It may be hard to... I want to be also sympathetic to the fact that we might be talking to someone quite young, and also someone who I think we're coming at it from an angle of like, we want to protect you, and it may seem like we're being too harsh.
Prude.
Or prude or something, which is kind of why I was trying to be like, whatever decision you make is okay. Like, it's okay. Even if something really bad happens, it's okay. You can't blame yourself for that. Like, if you decide it's the right move for you to have sex with this guy in your car, and then he rapes you and does something sexually you're uncomfortable with, that's assault, hurts you in any way, fucking like kidnaps you, that's not your fault. No matter what.
Right.
It's not your fault. And obviously, we wish that we live in a world where anyone can have sex with anyone in whatever car they want to and have there be no negative consequences.
Right.
But, since you are coming out with this question, we feel like it's our responsibility to bring to light as many possible things to consider as, come to our minds, just so you have other opinions in your head and questions to ask yourself, and then if this person is open to answering those questions, to ask them. And I think it's a bad sign if you try to ask for your needs to be met in ways that are different from what this guy is offering, and they're resistant to that, and they're kind of not trying to be controlling or not let you have the experience that you want to have. That's not a good sign. I think we're assuming some of that because of the circumstances.
Pick somebody who cares about your enjoyment of the experience.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good metric, a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. And I think you're a guy, and I don't know to what extent you subscribe to hetero norms. But for any sexual experience, especially one where you're losing your virginity or having your first sexual experience, it is okay to take your feelings into consideration and to ask yourself honestly, what do I want to get out of this?
And to change your mind in the moment.
Yes.
You might think you really want something, and then if you look inside yourself and you're like, oh, I don't really feel like doing this right now.
Yeah.
Don't let the awkwardness win in that situation.
Yeah.
If you do, that's also okay. But I think that you'll be happier if you listen to what's my real want in this moment, not what did I think I want an hour ago before I came over here.
Yeah. And if you decide that maybe there's a chance you want something for yourself that's not exactly what the setup is, that's okay. You're not like being a baby or being too feminine or being too much of a prude or whatever. I don't know what this, I guess I'm kind of assuming like worst case scenario about this other person, because you're asking us to investigate what are the possible danger zones. Just don't let that person talk you into doing something that you weren't comfortable with. It's just like the other conversation. It's just like the other question we were answering. Like, have a conversation with yourself and with this person if you're comfortable about what are your boundaries. What do you not want out of this experience? What do you want out of this experience? Honest and open communication without judging yourself, especially, is a good precursor to really anything.
Yeah.
We will never tell you not to do that.
I'll tell people to not explore certain topics at certain times. I think that there is a schedule for when to do what type of personal work, and that it can be wise to delay for some practical or physical safety reasons, some type of introspection or, something that's going to take all of your energy away from you. Like, you can push things off sometimes till a time that feels more appropriate.
Totally.
But generally, yes, I'm totally on board with what you're saying.
Thanks for following it up.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that it's an exciting time for you two. And so, it's important to let yourself be excited. If you do decide you want to go for it, let yourself be excited. I mean, still be vigilant and have your wits about you, of course, like all the mom advice, but also enjoy yourself and try to milk it for all the pleasure it can get you, because it's not going to be your best sexual experience. Definitely milk it. It's not going to be your best sexual experience.
It might if it's your only one.
God damn it, Rob.
What?
Well, that's the
for
other
a
thing.
Minute, it will be your best.
Yes, it will be, and your worst. But the other thing is, like, if you decide, if any part of you doesn't feel right about this and wants to quote unquote save yourself for something better, that's okay. Something better will come along. I want to assure you. Again, like, pretty much no matter what age you are, no matter what sexual minority you are, you deserve to hold out for the thing you really want. You don't have to lower your standards, to some critical extent in order to have a sexual experience. You are worth going for the sexual experience you really want, especially for your first time, because you do only get one of those.
Right.
It doesn't have to be the special magical thing, but
it's a
only
moderate sized deal. Some people make it a really big deal. Some people say it's no deal. It is a moderate sized deal there.
Because for the rest of your life, people are going to ask you, how did you lose your virginity?
And you're just going to shut them the fuck down. And you're like, not now.
You mean like you
Tell you
just
over. Yeah, that's the joke I'm making. Very good.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Sorry. Not to shop.
The last thing I want to say is, if you do this now, don't expect having sex to solve all your problems or radically change your life.
Yeah.
You'll probably go on somewhat normally after that, and that may be a letdown if you've built this up into a big thing that changes your whole outlook or makes you feel differently about yourself and your place in the world.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say too, which I kind of made an allusion to but never really got detailed into, is be honest with yourself too about your expectation for contact with this person after, because even if you think, I just want to have sex with this person and then I don't need anything else from them, you might want the opportunity to debrief with them even a little bit, or go on like one other date, or want a longer continued emotional connection. Because as we said before, once physical intimacy gets involved, feelings can get involved, and then it can easily become a slippery slope into something you didn't even anticipate, because your body is going to have all kinds of weird responses you can't anticipate. So I would at least make sure, at least be in touch with yourself on really what are your wants and needs, and ask ahead of time with this person. And again, this is why I would recommend being honest about that it's your first time. Because then also that might take some of the pressure off of you to act like you have more experience performing than you do. But then also that will make sense to them if you are like, hey, can we like debrief on the experience we just had, or let's talk about it. I think that's something important to think about going into it as well.
I would advise against using superlatives or comparisons to other experiences when you're debriefing, like asking where you rank or how something measures up for them.
Oh, definitely don't do that.
Yeah, you just don't want to. You probably don't want that information.
You're probably not going to be his.
Probably
best.
shouldn't give that to other people as well. Like, I think that just avoid comparisons to other experiences if you can in that debrief conversation, because you might think you're comfortable with something and then later it's like ringing out in your head afterwards. So try to avoid that.
You could plan a debrief with like a close friend or something too, if
show them the video.
That person wasn't available. Show them the footage. Show them the tape.
Just kidding. Don't film this without both parties' consent.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend, especially with all the other things we've said, I wouldn't add any more layers of potential danger.
Don't live stream this. Okay. Turn off the dash cam.
Yeah, but definitely write about it in your diary later. Process those feelings.
Or journal, whatever you choose to call it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Die.
Jur.
So is that all we have to say to our friend Anorro?
I think so. That's all I got.
Me too. I really wish you the best of luck.
Yeah. Good luck. Have fun.
Have fun.
All
Let
right.
us know how it went.
Yeah. Okay.
Give us the juicy deets.
You
Well,
ready to wrap this thing up?
fuck yeah. As always, email us your questions, freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com. We like to mix it up with some Reddit posts, some listener questions. We are really excited to hear from you and talk about the things that matter to you.
Yes, we are. I like your Morgan did some great chest beating hand movements.
Yeah, I was trying to be like some kind of like cheesy news stations where it's like the stories that matter for you.
Oh yeah. She's like punching with each arm
Yeah.
back and forth, alternating.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Good night, you guys. I hope you've enjoyed.
It's actually dark outside.
Keeping you
Getting dark
company
outside. It feels time.
from waking up through dinner all the way
Try to keep that
till
tuna casserole
back
down.
to bed.